It's really a great pleasure to be invited to speak to you all. As was just said, I've been here for about 3 months, so new to the area. And, I go around the world, especially before COVID, giving talks about my research and how to take care of cancer patients. But this is a very different talk I want to share with you. Like all of you, you each have an individual, unique story. So this is a very personal talk about my story and the things that I've learned from it, and it's entitled Purpose with Pure Intent. What I show you here is 2 brothers. The one on the left is a brother that went to college during middle school, the age of 12, won every award you could imagine, had a full ride to college, was on his way to obtain a genetics degree, while the other person never wanted to show up to school, never wanted to read a book, barely got a 2.5 high school GPA, dropped out of college after a year, spent his time doing multiple martial arts for over a decade, was a junior competitive bodybuilder, and became a personal trainer. And this is a picture of those 2 brothers, and the one on the left is my older brother Ben, and the one on the right is me. I had blonde hair for multiple years, and somehow, as you see, it turned black. But I'm going to tell you that we, at the end, you'll see how we were far more similar than different at this point in our life. So when I was asked to give this talk, I was thinking, what are words of wisdom that can provide? How does one take this unlikely path from substandard academic performance with no interest in it to obtaining his medical degree, going to one of the top cancer centers in the world in radiation oncology, becoming the fastest tenured full professor at the University of Michigan, and is one of the youngest chairmen in the United States for radiation oncology. So these points that I show you here, first of all, as you'll see throughout my talk, these are meaningless achievements in that they have no impact in and of themselves. And so when I reflect on my life, what is it that has allowed me to obtain the path that I have chosen, and how you all can hopefully relate? So like all of you, I'm a product of my environment. I've lived in 10 states, moved 15 times, and so change is inevitable. It's something I have had to accept. And there are 3 maxims, there's 3 lessons that when I reflect back on my life of how I've been able to achieve what I've achieved, and how really I've learned from others who have been successful and led a meaningful and purposeful life, what they have used to achieve their dreams. The first, as I'll get into more later, is the title of the talk, Purpose with Pure Intent. Purpose is not passion. We can be passionate about our purpose, but passion can be fleeting. The results that we get, whether that's a degree, whether that's an award, a paper, a grant, this is not our purpose. And pure intent is a critical component, as I'll explain, that will always guide you right in this world. The second pillar is understanding game theory and currency. Many of you, myself included, when I started in pre-medical school and undergrad, I did not realize that I was in a game. All of you are in a game right now. You need to adapt to the game you're in and understand the currency that you need to achieve your goals, to complete the game, to fulfill your purpose. And finally, and this is probably the most difficult of the 3, is as in the Matrix, there is no spoon. It's you have to change the way you think about this world. You need to understand the rules of this world, and there are very few actual rules, like gravity. Almost everything in this world was created by a human, which means it can be changed by a human. You must write your own story. So what do I mean by purpose with pure intent? Well, when I was 21, I had dropped out of college, and I was a personal trainer. I had very finite goals, and I saw right before me that I was not headed towards a meaningful and infinite purpose in my life. And one of my clients that I was training was a physician. And that physician inspired me and showed me science and medicine, which, as many of you realize, is infinite. There is no endpoint to it. It will go on forever. And I identified at that moment that my purpose is to improve the lives of humankind, period. Now, I've refined that that's often focused as a physician, taking care of cancer patients, and as a husband and a father. And you each need to define your purpose. But until you have this purpose, everything I'm going to talk about will be very challenging to be able to really have an impactful life. So this is step one. Once you have that purpose, this is why I believe that I am here. And so there are things that I want to do in my life that will align with this purpose. You'll also have things that you need to do in this world, such as things that align with your goals. If I want to help cancer patients, I chose the route to become a physician. That means I need to go to medical school, obtain an MD. I need to have a faculty job. I need to treat patients, be a physician. Well, you have to follow rules. Each of us have jobs and rules that we actually have to obey or we'll get fired. You won't complete it. And so in a perfect world, you would completely maximize your wants and your needs, and this is where you would live in 24 hours a day. That's obviously not reality, but each of us, all of you that are listening, we only have 24 hours a day. And so you really have to try to figure out how do you live the life with purpose so that when you retire, when you die, that you feel that you've lived that meaningful life. There are also things that you want to do that fulfill your purpose, but maybe your job doesn't need you to do them. My job does not care if I'm a great father or great husband or go above and beyond the expectations even that the institution expects of me. But if those align with my purpose, I need to find balance because I still need to make sure that that first box that I'm maximizing. These last two boxes on the right are the things that I see every day, and I've seen this even when I was a bodybuilder, where my day was spent 8 hours a day, 8 times a day, I should say, eating meals and waking up another time in the middle of the night eating another meal. That people, you often are not aligning efficiency. And so what you want to do in this world, if you don't want to do it, but your job needs you to do it, you need to make this as efficient as possible. So example, as a physician, and I think all physicians can relate, is patient notes. I do not like writing patient notes. I know it's necessary. I'll get fired if I don't do it. But you need to be efficient. And something my co-residents remind me of frequently is I wrote a macro script in residency to auto-generate the prescriptions we were putting in by hand every single time. That simple thing that took me 1 hour to make saved me 166 hours over those 4 years. That is time that I can use to the boxes on the left. And the last is where people truly fail often, is that they're doing things in their life they don't want to do and they don't need to do. Whether that's spending hours a day on social media, whether it's complaining, fighting, there are so many things that have no purpose in your life that you don't need to do. And an example that, again, many of my mentees have heard over and over, they call it the famous condiment talk, because back from my new, eating so healthy, I don't eat condiments, ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise. Very boring, I realize, but I seek no enjoyment from it. And that 10 minutes, 5 minutes a day adds up to dozens of hours. And that's even gone to the point that people make fun of me because I make 5 meals every morning. It takes 6 minutes. And over the 5 years at Michigan, if you estimate what it would take the average person to make those meals, go to the cafeteria, I saved about 2,433 hours. 2,400 hours by doing that. Now that's because in my purpose and my goals, preparing fancy meals didn't help me achieve what I wanted to achieve. And so people say, Dan, do you sleep? Of course I sleep. I sleep 7 to 8 hours every single night, but I have eliminated thousands of hours of waste. The pure intent component is also important, is that you have to really ask yourself, are you doing this because you want to achieve impact in this world? The byproduct of impact, sure, as you've heard, I have papers or grants. I have a good salary. I might have been recognized for things. But those are byproducts that I could care less what my CV looks like. I do it for the impact, and these things come with it. But the problem in the world we live in is so often people then see successful people and they try to chase this currency, these byproducts. And inevitably their impact will be far smaller. They may have impact, but it'll be suboptimal. And when really push comes to shove and you have to stand your ground to fight for what you believe is right, for me to advocate for patients with cancer, and there will be confrontation to change the way the world is to help those patients, if you're doing it for the right reason, you'll end up on the right side of history. And those who are doing it for the wrong reason, they often end up, as you'll see in the New York Times, and they lose their jobs. The second is game theory and currency. So we are all in a game. You have to define the type of game that you are in, the goal of that game, and the currency of that game. And the most common reason people fail or are unable to achieve their goals and fulfill their purpose is that they don't know the type of game they are in, the goals, the currency, or even the purpose for playing the game. Many of you, especially students, don't even know that you're in a game. And we must remember that hard work alone often results in irrelevant currency. If I were to spend my entire day perfecting every single patient note, perfect grammar, perfect punctuation, that is irrelevant currency for me achieving the purpose that I have in this world. Now you have to choose what is that relevant currency in the game that you are playing. And so this is probably one of the more important slides that I'm going to show you, is this is my synthesis of game theory. In that, as other far wiser people than myself have described the types of games in this world, like Simon Sinek, the infinite games and the finite games. An example here that you will see is that your purpose should drive the games that you pick. All too often, people enter into games, jobs, decisions passively. My purpose guided me that I felt my path was to go to medical school to become a physician. And once I entered that game, it is a finite game. There is a goal to that game. And what will make many people in GME drop their jaw right now is the goal of medical school and residency is not solely a great medical education to learn how to take care of patients. That is not the goal. The goal of medical school for many, but it doesn't need to be for all, is to get into residency, and often, but not for all, is to then have to be a practicing physician. If you do not get into residency or get that job, then what was the point for many people of going to medical school? Now, a byproduct of trying to achieve your goal is you need to generate skills, getting that education, learning how to take care of patients. That will help drive your purpose. That is what I use to help people. But you also have to be cognizant of the currency, whether that's grades, professionalism, letters of recommendation, papers, grants, the whole shebang that people are used to judge people. You are not judged in almost any profession by your skill before you go to that next step. You are judged by some surrogate of currency. So those are the two things you need to generate to keep going to have that purpose. And I put that in words here, where purpose guides the games you play. The byproduct of the game is both currency and skill, and currency will help you achieve your goals to get to the next step. But it is skill that contributes to your purpose and drives impact. The final, and this, like I said, is the hardest because I think this is a product of my environment. There was no active decision to think this way, that there is no spoon. We all will face walls in this world, but there are fundamentally different types of people and how they view that structure. When I see this structure, that is just a wall and nothing more. If a human can make it, a human can change it. And so believing that wall can stop you is your first mistake. You must change the way that you think, because if a human can make it, they can change it. And you will have many, many, many obstacles, walls put before you. I have had many in my path. But often it means just walking a little bit down the road and going right back on your path. Maybe it's working with a team to go over or under that wall. And all too often, Walls exist because no one bothered destroying that wall that was erected decades, centuries, millennia ago. And you need to be the person to write your own story, take your own path, and break through that wall. And you'll find often many people will follow you because that wall was in the way of making progress. And if you always let those walls dictate where you go, you will never be on your own path and write your own story. And so a fundamental saying that I live by is that the impossible is simply the untried. If we went back 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, you look at what we're able to do today, it is literally impossible to the people back then. And I'm sure in 1,000 years from now, 100 years from now, maybe even 10 years from now, there are things we will think were not possible. But someone was willing to challenge that and make it happen. Many of my mentees, many of the people I interview for jobs, I ask them, what is it that they want to do in this world? What is their purpose? And so often they are hesitant to tell me. They say, well, Dan, I was told that, I need to put in a few years, 5 years, before I can start on my path, before I can start doing the things that I want to do. And I look at them and I say, what are you waiting for? If that is what you want to do, if that is your purpose, you need to start that now. And so going back to my older brother, Ben, and myself, we were very similar at that time. Neither of us had found our purpose. We were both working very hard in very, very different ways. But he realized prior to actually obtaining that genetics degree, went to Israel, came back, changed his degree, spent 6 years, became a rabbi, is now one of the youngest rabbis in New York City, and he lives every day that purpose. And I stand before you today still on my journey, trying to get better, and I hope that these words will help some of you to get back on the path you want to be and live the life that you want. A purposeful life with pure intent. Thank you so much.